Hey guys, bit of a cold and windy day out in the rice fields. Just before we get started on this, just want to acknowledge a couple of things. First of all, yes, we do support free speech, as you guys know. The second thing is we do also recognise very well, after being on YouTube for the last 100 years, we do recognise very well that a lot of people, perhaps even the majority of people, don't care so much about what effect their words or actions have on other people. You know, that's the sort of the impression we get from all that time on YouTube. However, we also know that there are some people who are very interested in knowing how their words and actions affect other people, and a lot of the how-to videos we've made about Japan have been aimed at those people, to give them the information they need to know so that they can behave in a way that they want to behave in order to not offend anybody else. So with all that in mind, there's three words in particular I want to talk about today. The first one is Jap. Now, to some younger people, that might not have the feeling that it might to some older people, but the fact is, we know from talking to Japanese people over the years that that word is offensive to some Japanese people, and they find it rather unpleasant. And to be honest, a lot of non-Japanese people find it unpleasant as well, including me. So it's actually one of the words. YouTube allows us to block certain words. So there's a setting that we have for the channel where we can block certain words, and that is in our blocked words. So if somebody uses that word in a comment, it will actually get caught by the system. Because we know it offends lots of people. It's the connotations left over from World War II. It was used in such a negative way for such a long period of time during World War II and after World War II that the feeling that word generates has sort of lived on. So we know often that these three words are used on our channel by people not intending to offend anybody or upset anybody, but they're not aware of the fact that that's the effect that it has. So that's why we're making this video. So yeah, it's best not to use that word. You know, we know even some people even seem to use it in sort of like a friendly way, or I don't know, sort of a familiar way or something like that. But yeah, it's probably, we'd suggest it's probably best not to. Anyway, that's the first one. The next one is gaijin. Now, gaijin, when you first come to Japan and you first hear yourself being called gaijin, it's sort of, you know, it doesn't mean much really, except its literal meaning, which is outsider or foreigner. And at first it doesn't sort of mean much, but what happens is, to some of us, now I know not everybody, I mean I know foreigners that have lived here for 20, 30 years and they don't care about that word at all, but I also know a lot of foreigners who live here who don't like that word at all. And it's because what happens is, when you hear it used a few hundred times with negative connotations, you know, I've had old guys walk past me in the street and you hear them muttering either to themselves or to someone else, gaijin, you know, or you'll be somewhere, you'll be in a restaurant or something, and you walk past a table and you'll hear someone say to somebody else, gaijin, you know, and the tone of it, you know, or straight out abuse. Some of you remember a story a while back. I was talking to a policeman outside the scene of a fire, and an old local guy walked past and said something to the effect, in Japanese, something to the effect of foreigners are no good. Gaijin wa dame. Gaijin wa dame. Gaijin wa urui, I think you might have said. You know, foreigners are bad. Right? So once you've heard it used in a negative way a few hundred times, it starts to become a bit, you know, you don't really want to hear it anymore. You get sort of sick of hearing it. And again, not everybody. I mean, there are foreigners that live in Japan that call themselves gaijin, and they're friends, you know, and that's fine. That's all fine. The purpose of this video is just to point out to people who are not aware of it, to people who care, right? People who don't care, this video isn't for you. The people who care and the people who are not aware of it, that using it is unpleasant. What triggered the video today was, it's sort of been in the back of my mind for a while, but today I posted a video of that car crash, and a whole heap of people, one really good guy said, one very polite guy said, I see that's a non-Japanese person or something like that, right? Which is usually, you'll notice that's what I say. I refer to people as non-Japanese people or foreign people. But a whole heap of others, oh look, it's a gaijin, look at the gaijin, it's a gaijin. You know, and again, they probably don't mean anything unpleasant about it, but you know, it's sort of it's unpleasant. I find it unpleasant when anybody uses it, but I find it more unpleasant when Japanese people use it, because you know, it's just that bad flavour it leaves. Also, might add too, when we're communicating in English, there's no real need to use that word. We have perfectly good words in English for foreigner, you know, and to use the word foreigner or non-Japanese or anything else in English would make more sense too, you know. And again, not meaning to offend anybody who's always used it and are happy to use it and like using it. That's fine. This is just for those people who want to be aware of the fact that some people find it unpleasant. Not just me. Over the years, I've had this conversation lots of times. Usually, if we're talking with another non-Japanese person about this topic, quite often the next one, particularly if they're parents, the next one that comes up is hafu, right? And hafu is the word that Japanese people often use for someone who's half Japanese. So, like my kids, where their father's, you know, Australian and their mother's Japanese, so they get called hafu. And again, usually the intention is often kind. You know, they'll say, oh, hafu desu ne, you know, it's a half person, right? Hafu desu ne, tashika, utsukushi desu ne. So they'll say, of course. And this again, people who say this, their intention is a compliment. They'll say, oh, a foreigner, a hafu, oh, so of course, very beautiful. You know, oh, cool, and they'll say all these words that, oh, because this person's a half Japanese person, of course they're good looking and of course they're cool, right? So their intention by saying this is a compliment, but we don't find it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like that, and the kids sure as hell don't like it because they're being reminded, you know, they're being told that they're different. And actual fact too, you know, ethnically, okay, possibly, you know, that's probably true. However, you know, the reality is that our kids are 100% Japanese. One of our kids never been outside Japan. So as far as they're concerned, their feeling is they're Japanese. Their father is foreigner, that's true, but those kids, their feeling is Japanese. And again, you know, we've got lots of friends where there's one foreign parent and one Japanese parent, and they have kids, you know, in the same situation. And we've talked about this before, and the kids usually hate it because in Japan, anything that you do that's different, you know, some of our cultures, like in Australia, you know, my class at school in Australia we had kids from all over the world. You know, one of my buddies was actually Japanese. You know, one of the girls was from India. You know, we had Australian culture, same as American culture, and you know, lots of countries in Europe now. You get people from all around the world. However, in Japan, you don't get that. And being different in Japan is sort of a thing that, you know, you're constantly getting pointed at and so on. And you know, kids don't particularly want to be reminded, hey, you're different, even if it's meant as a compliment. And this is the thing, the intention. You know, those three words are often used without any negative intention at all. You know, and the hafu one is often used as a compliment or as a positive thing. Oh, they're going, oh, hafu, oh, she's beautiful. You know, there was a couple of famous hafus on TV. Some of you might remember Becky. Becky was a hafu. She got in trouble for doing something. I think she had a secret boyfriend or something, and so that destroyed her career. But, you know, they used to talk about her all the time. Oh, Tashkan, yeah, of course, being a hafu, right, she's beautiful. So they don't mean any offence by it, but, you know, it's unpleasant for some people, you know. So again, look, no doubt there'll be some people watching this. We also know people who don't care about any of those three words. We know Japanese people who are quite happy with all those three words. We know foreigners that are happy with all those three words and don't care. We know, okay? We know. We also know there's a bunch of other people who say, if you get offended by something that someone else says or does, that's your problem. We know, right? We know, like, well, after all these years on YouTube, we know the attitude of most people on YouTube. Probably they don't give a rat's about anybody else's feelings or thoughts or anything else. We know, that's fine. This video isn't for those people. This video is for the people that we know that watch our videos who do care about stuff like this, and that if using a different word is going to not is not going to be unpleasant for people, they'll use that word, which is what I do. You know, you won't hear me using those 3 words in a video usually, because why? When there's perfectly good alternatives, you know. Talking about a Japanese person, they're a Japanese person. No need to use the other word, you know, or writing, no need to use the other words. Only not that much shorter, you know, don't be lazy. So, you know, and the other ones, you know, half Japanese kids, yeah, okay. Usually it doesn't need to come up. I think the point is the parent is the foreigner. The parent is the different one. You know, that girl has an Australian parent. That's really what that's about. You know, it doesn't make her a foreigner or half a foreigner. It doesn't. Just doesn't. You know, and if I know it's talking about genetics or DNA or whatever else, yeah, okay. Scientifically, yes, that's true. But, you know, from a cultural point of view or from any other way, it's not relevant. You know, so, and yeah, when we're speaking English, why say Gaijin anyway? You know, we're speaking English, so we're talking about a foreign person or a non-Japanese person or a person from another country, you know. So again, I can hear it in my head. I see it on YouTube all the time. You know, there seems to be the majority that seem to say, "Oh well, if you're offended, that's your problem," and all those insulting words that they use for people who get offended, like what do they call them? Pussies, or no, what do they call them? I can't remember. You guys will remember. But all the insulting words they use, ironically, if you're insulted by somebody's words or actions, then they sort of suggest that means you're too delicate or something, which is just, you know. I don't lie awake at night feeling bad about it. You'll notice those comments using Gaijin are still on that video, right? So, you know, I'm not lying awake crying about any of this stuff, but it's just that I know that, and if those 3 words only offended or bothered me, I wouldn't even worry about this video. But I know it's not just me. I know there's a bunch of other people who don't like it either. So I'm just letting those 3 people watching this who care, I'm just letting you know. And the rest of you can just have a rant and a rave about how everybody's too sensitive these days and people need to man up and take some insults, right? Ironically, you know what I've noticed over the years on YouTube? I tell you what I often do. If someone leaves an insulting comment, usually I ignore it. If it's really insulting, I'll delete it. But usually I'll just ignore it. But occasionally I'll get one where it loans itself to just being turned around at the other person. So you know, recently someone said on one of the videos, if you don't like Japan, you should leave. And that leaves itself open to then saying, if you don't like this channel, you should leave, right? So you're basically giving them the same thing they just said back at them. What I've noticed over the years is the ones who are so quick with the insults are really sensitive. If you turn that same insult back towards them, get really upset, right? It's often the case, isn't it? So people who are very sensitive about their own feelings, about, you know, something that might offend them, or quick to offend other people, don't like it when it comes back at them. So anyway, that's all YouTube. This might be relevant not just on the internet, which doesn't really matter, but in real life too. You know, those people who come to Japan, you know, if you come to Japan for a holiday or something and you run into some other people here that are not Japanese, you know, they might be ones that don't like being called Gaijin. So I don't like it. I don't like it, man. I meet other foreigners here and they go on about the Gaijin. I don't like it. It's a bit ignorant too. You know how always on these videos, when I'm talking about Japanese people, I always say this is a generalization. It doesn't apply to anybody. The problem with the word Gaijin too is it's often used to lump all of us together, which is just nuts. Because that's basically saying that everybody from around the world who's not Japanese is exactly the same. It's often used like that. Gaijin do this, and Gaijin do this, and Gaijin do that, which is, you know, Japanese people often do that. You'll hear it on TV. The polite version, Gaikokujin, they'll often say that, but it's the same thing. It means the same thing, and it's used in the same way. So, anyway, that's more than enough of that. Delicate subjects are always easier to deal with when you're sitting out in the rice field. Something about the rice field atmosphere. More videos coming soon.